Hi, I'm Billy. And welcome to Jack of Traits. In this part of the Laravel 8 video series, we will implement our custom Laravel command to generate our Livewire CRUD component. All this time, we have been creating our Livewire component from scratch. If you have been following along, you will notice that we have been implementing the same approach to our Livewire components CRUD functionality. Now that we have a blueprint for our Livewire components, why don't we create a custom command that generates our code? And without further ado, let's jump right into it. But before we begin, let's prepare the things that we will need later. First, open up routes, web.php, and add two new routes called users and user permissions. These two routes will have their own CRUD components later. Let's also open up our views, admin directory, and create their blade files too. We will put our Livewire components here later. We should also open our views, navigation dropdown.blade.php, and put their links above. Alright, now that we prepared these, let's go ahead and add the users and users permissions routes in our middleware logic temporarily. We will be updating this logic later after we create our custom Laravel command to generate our own Livewire CRUD components. We will create the CRUD for our user permissions module, so let us also prepare our database. Let's go ahead and create our database migration file for our user permissions table. We will store the role and the route name in this database table instead of having them in a hard-code multidimensional array format. At this point, We usually run the make Livewire command to generate our Livewire component. But this time, it's going to be different. We will actually create another command to generate a Livewire component, but the only thing is it contains the basic CRUD functionality that we just did in the previous videos, so we don't have to write them all over again. First off, let me explain another thing. Either you are a new or a veteran Laravel developer, you may have heard the Laravel files called stubs. The stub files are used as some sort of a template for common Laravel generated files. For example, when you run a command that generates a controller or a model, you usually see a pre-written code in the file. We are not going to dig into the existing Laravel files in this video, but instead, we will create our custom stub that is intelligent enough to be as dynamic as it can be. We are just publishing the stub so that we can put our custom stub files in the stub directory. To create another Laravel Artisan command, run php artisan make command and type in the class file's name. In our case, we are naming our class file as Livewire custom CRUD command. After you run it, you will see that the class file is created in the app, console, commands directory. Open that file, and you can put your code inside the public function handle. Let's test our newly created command to see if it really works. Here, we are just using the info command to print some words from our command line interface. And the signature property will act as the name of your command. If you just run php artisan, you can actually see the list of available Laravel commands, including the one that we just created. Notice that we are also changing the name of the command. Now that we see that it works, let's go ahead and add two parameters to the signature variable, the name of the class and the name of the model class parameters like so. Please add one space right after the signature command name before you add the two parameters. We will also need to have corresponding class variables for the two parameters to store their values. As you can see, we need to know our Livewire component's class name, and the default model. We will create three functions inside this class. The first function will gather the value of the parameters. The second function will create the Livewire class file. And the third will generate the view file. Laravel parameters are required by default. If you notice a question mark after the parameter name, that means we are telling Laravel that these two parameters are not required. The most basic implementation of running a command with parameters is just separating them with one space. You will notice that while I am running our custom Laravel command, I just typed in the needed values for the two parameters. Think of it as passing in a value to a function. But we are going to have a different approach later. Instead of doing this, we will just add a prompt for these two parameters. You will see our process later. First, we will assign the two parameters to our class variables like so. Next, we will add a prompt. If the user does not provide a value of the class name, we will display a prompt. In Laravel, you can use the ask function. You can use this function to capture user input from the command line. We will also do the same with the model class file. Now that we captured our inputs, we also need to transform the name of the class into studly case like so. Now that we've prepared our two parameters, let's add the logic to generate our Livewire class file. First, we will add a stub file for this. And we will put our custom Livewire CRUD stub inside the stubs folder. You can actually put it anywhere in your project directory, but I think it's nice to have our stub to be in the same folder as the Laravel stubs. We will use our custom Livewire CRUD stub to generate the template for our Livewire class file. For now, let's just put some text to our custom Livewire CRUD stub file. We will see if we can create a file based on the template in our stub. Let's check if we are able to get the content of the file. In this case, we will just use the Laravel file system class to manage files. With the Laravel file system class, we can easily manipulate the files that we need. Now that we are able to get the original content of the file, let's try to see if we are able to generate it in our destination folder, which is located in the app, http, Livewire directory. Awesome. We are able to generate a file with this approach. We wanted to replace some text inside our stub file because we need to change the class name and the model name inside it when we generate the file. In Laravel, there is a helper function called replaceArray. So what it does is you just pass in 3 parameters. The first parameter is a symbol identifier. This symbol can be any character or string that represents the one that you want to replace inside the original string. The second parameter is an array value. It will replace all the symbols inside the string sequentially. And the third parameter is the original string that you wanted to modify. To make it simple, let's just use the caret symbol for now. With this approach, our Livewire CRUD generator can be dynamic. Let's test more strings again. Now that we understand the implementation, let's add the real template for our custom Livewire CRUD component. Since we follow a specific pattern, I have identified the most common things in our Livewire CRUD components. I'm going to replace the caret symbol. Now, let's have our Livewire CRUD component class file to follow the pattern that we did with the navigation menus component. There's a lot of replacing going on, so I just pasted the stub component's direct link in the description below. You can copy those while you are following along. That looks good. Now we are almost done with our custom command. There is still a little bit of editing even after we generated our custom Livewire CRUD components. But it really does make a lot of difference compared to the ones that we did in the previous video. With this approach, we will be able to become more productive when developing web applications using Livewire. You can even improvise your own Livewire CRUD components with this. Now for the last step, we will generate our Livewire CRUD view file. We are just going to copy the content of our stub file this time. There's no replace the string that will happen in this function since this is the view. We will implement the same kind of approach. Only this time, we will just simply copy and paste the content of our stub file programmatically. As you can see, we just basically copy and pasted what we did from the previous video. Let's just edit this stub file a little bit. Note that you can control the look of your view file. If you have a better CSS for your Livewire CRUD view file, use it. Of course, you also need to retain the modals and the wire click attributes. I also put the link to this in the description below so that you can simply copy and edit it while you are at it. We also need to do another thing. We don't want to generate the same class files and overwrite them accidentally, so we need to check if the Livewire component exists. In the next video, we will continue the improvements of our user access roles. I hope you found another approach to become more productive when working with Laravel 8 and Livewire. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, comment, share, and subscribe if you're new to this channel. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll get notified whenever a new video is up. Stay tuned, and see you in the next video.